I don't. Do you have a film background at all? What's your story with that?
I mean, a little when it comes to schooling. Like I was a film minor at UVM. Loved that. Did like a bunch of screenwriting and directing stuff there, and that was a blast. Other than that, I did a short stint during the summer program my junior year. I somehow got into NYU's Tisch summer program for like acting. I was like total fish out of water. Like I think I was the only guy that wasn't from NYU that was accepted to the whole thing. So like I didn't know anybody, just dropped into, I mean, I'm from Boston, so the city's not a huge shock, but like dropped into this massive new city and just like figuring it out. And that was a blast. Like that program was pretty insane. Like that was the same program that like Miles Teller and like Beanie Feldstein went to and stuff like that. That kid, Danny Ramirez, who's like in Top Gun, and he's going to be the new Falcon in the MCU probably. So it's pretty legit. And I was definitely like, all right, I don't know if I have the chops for this. But outside of that, it's just like watching stuff constantly. The classic, like the new classic filmmaker response saying you don't need to go to film school. You can just like watch the greats, that kind of stuff. But that's pretty much the extent. I know. Well, I want to hear more about yours though. What's the LA movie background there?
Yeah. So I'm from Texas. I graduated. I moved to Los Angeles. I always wanted to be a filmmaker. But then I moved to LA. I took acting classes. I went to the New York Film Academy. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all, but they had one at the time. It was 2003, I think. They had one in New York. Obviously, that's the mothership, is what they called it. And they had one in LA, which was right on Universal Studios.
Okay.
You know, so it was cool. They were shooting Desperate Housewives at the time that I was there. So there was always like actors around when I was like, 18, 19 years old. So then after that, one of my cousins out there was a producer, and she got me on, I don't know if you remember this TV show, but she was doing a reality show called Trading Spouses. I can guess swapping and trading spouses. You're a little bit younger than me, so it was a show where like you'd take a mom from one part and then she'd have to go live with another family, and they'd
definitely seen
wives.
Clips.
Yeah. They'd switch wives, and then at the end they'd get a prize, and how the show was set up was the surrogate mom would delegate the funds to the family however she chooses fit. So that would always create some sort of drama. But it was cool. Like I got to travel. I went all over the place with that. I was a nighttime production assistant, so I had to basically watch the cameras that we set up in the family's house. And if they did anything at night, I'd have to call the crews to come in and start filming them.
Anything juicy happened?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, sometimes it'd be like their teenage kids would try to get out at night and like go to a party or something, stuff like that.
Yeah.
There was one where we were in Buffalo, and it was like in a really rough neighborhood, and we had the production house right next to the house, and this was like a neighborhood where like, you could buy a house for $20,000 at the time. It's like 2006 or 7 or something like that, and you could buy a house in that neighborhood for super cheap, but most of them were abandoned. It was just a really rundown, rough neighborhood. So we bought a house. We got like our production house right next to their house. But what happened was the mom, the surrogate mom who was there, delegated the money to them and gave it to like a local politician. I gave it to like the kids to get like new school, and like instead of just being like, hey, you guys are in like this impoverished area, here's some money to like just help your kids or whatever. And the mom freaked out, started breaking all our gear and stuff like that. But that was the most fun at that time. But so then after that, I went and I did a lot of production assistant directing stuff on movies like Transformers, stuff like that. I was just getting my feet wet. I was like,
which one though?
One,
which
yeah,
one?
Yeah. I only
First
did
one.
Only worked on one, and then so like. In LA at that time, I don't know if they still do it this way. They had like these production houses where you could get jobs every day on like a different movie set, right? Like you'd have to be a production assistant here, a production coordinator. Most of the time you just dealt with extras.
Yeah.
So I'd go from like one day I'd be on Transformers, and then I'd go to like Grey's Anatomy,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy that show is still on air. I had no idea.
It's insane. Yeah.
But I've always been like a huge movie guy. Even when I was in film school, like people come to me like with movie questions. A lot of people call me like Mr. IMDb, back in the day, just because like my movie knowledge was insane back then.
Yeah.
And then, I started to sour on the movie industry a little bit, just being out there, seeing how things are run, seeing how the way certain people act, and, all those horror stories you hear. I've probably seen it, heard it, been through it, experienced some of it. I've had people talk to me in a way that I've never been talked to in my life and never will. Like I said, I soured on the movie industry for a little bit. And I was like so sick of just seeing comic book movies all the time and things like that. But then my daughter started to get a little bit older, and I started to get really back into movies again. And so like I started collecting, bringing her in the fold. And then now we're, that's just where we are, man.
If you're back to collecting, then it's got a full hold on you then.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I always say this. I'm like, I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, you're the love of my life, but my first love will always be movies. Because that was it. Like, for real, like, I remember I was like 10, 11, 12. I'd be making movies in my dad's camcorder, and I'd be editing them in camera.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So
the good old days.
But yeah, man. So like I came across your stuff, I don't know, 6 months ago or something. I really enjoy. You have that good broadcasting voice, which is something I don't really have. I kind of sound like a dude that just walked off the beach, but I know what I'm talking about, which is, everyone brings a unique perspective, but I like yours because you kind of have that that radio, like that nice voice for radio.
I appreciate it. It's funny you say that, just because, I mean, obviously it's the only one I've got, so I never really registered that myself, but, I remember it like started in high school that like my teachers would always complain because I was like loud, always cracking jokes and everything. And my teachers would always say like down the hallway, like across the other side of the school, they knew when I was like on their way to their classroom, basically, because you could hear my voice from like a mile away. But I think I would just as much take movie recommendations from a guy walking off the beach, like I think that it's like something to be said. I think there's two different styles of it. Like I remember when I started making videos, so I was a film minor, but I'm an English major. So it was one of those things where I was like always super obsessed with writing, but more importantly, like when I would be doing these videos, I like love scripting stuff, like to a T. Like I kind of pride myself off my writing abilities. So I'm like, I think if I have some time to write something down, it'll be better than if I just come up with it off the cuff. So might as well use my strengths. But at the beginning, and like all these videos are like unlisted now because they were, the first time you're putting yourself on camera, they are rough.
Yeah, and it's hard going back and watching those too, I find.
Oh my God.
I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah, I can't. So, and I don't want anyone to, so they're unlisted. But I remember I had a guy that every video would be like, hey, I really like your takes, but like you have to start talking like a normal dude, right? Again, I was like, I think I was more like reading it. It was like reading it like an essay more than like taking my script and translating it into like a guy at a bar telling you, like his thoughts. And so I remember being like hung up on this because like this would happen like video after video. This guy would comment and I'm like, and then something like clicked that I was like, whatever, I'm just going to like take these notes that I wrote, just go off the cuff, like see how it flows. It was like perfect when it came to like my standards of what I wanted to be putting out. And then it was like one of those things, like it was like a scene out of a TV show. Like I tracked this dude down, like found his Instagram handle, and I was like, hey man, like you were like shitting on me a year ago, but I just had to let you know that was the best thing that happened to me when it came to like making these videos. And I don't think he even ever replied, but it was just one of those things where it's like, there's a fine line between like talking to a camera, like it's a person and, not sounding like a mix between not sounding like an idiot, but also not sounding like you're like just word vomiting sophisticated stuff to somebody. So,
yeah. And that's the one thing I found, just because I've filmed so many people, like I just wasn't in front of the camera a lot. So once I reversed the roles, I was like,
Yeah.
You kind of tense up and you're like, I understand why people freak out about this. Now it's just, it's no thing. I do it. But
Yeah.
when I first started, I wanted to have a faceless YouTube channel just because I do work in TV and stuff like that. But now I'm just like, it's fine. I'm not doing anything too offensive, I don't think. But but speaking of that, so do you, I really like your takes. You seem to be, you seem to take a more like optimistic approach to a lot of the stuff that you watch. You don't just kind of shit all over it, which I have no problem doing that with a movie.
Right.
But I do like, like it's, I don't want to say happy go lucky, but it seems like you have, even when you don't like a movie, you don't just sit, you find certain elements about it that you liked. Is there any particular reason to that?
I think honestly, like the crowd that I roll with when it comes to like watching movies and stuff, they're not afraid to like, I'd say they're very, dude. I know they're very critical if something sucks. Right. And I think as someone that like has like 0.01% of a film background, I'll say, just because I did stuff at school, like I think that I'm just a little bit more softened up by knowing how much goes into like creating a creative piece of media. So that being said, there are some terrible movies that I've like absolutely ripped to shreds, which are just, there's no saving them. Like it's just saying anything optimistic or positive about them would be like a lie, essentially.
That'd be very disingenuous.
Yes. So I think in that regard, I do try to like, I'm constantly reevaluating like my score and my personal checklist of like what I value in a movie and seeing the good in it, if there are good aspects, like rather than like, I'd say probably a decent example is like you brought up Argyle earlier. Like I think I was like pretty split on the middle, like because there were some stuff that I liked about it. I don't think I'm gonna let like there was like the pacing sucked, the editing sucked.
Oh man.
And like brutal. again like a bait and switch, like you said, because we went in expecting a Henry Cavill movie,
and he's in it for 5 minutes total.
5 minutes total. And like a guy in my comments or like last night when I was talking to my buddy was like, yeah, I can't wait to see that movie because I love Dua Lipa. I'm like, you're in for a bumpy ride, dude.
He's in it for 30 seconds, bro.
Yeah. Like you saw it in the trailer. That was all of her stuff. So even though that stuff was god awful, like I'm not gonna let it insanely dictate my entire outlook on the movie. Like if I'm thinking about like a checklist of like, okay, it didn't do this and this, but on the other side of the scale, it did do a couple things that I like, and like weighing it out appropriately that way, I try to do that. Like I also am actively trying to stay away because like you said, like negative takes get views. Like it's like if I say like, if my title is like Argyle changed my life for the worse.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Beyond repair. Like, and me like looking like I'm going to jump off a roof in the thumbnail, like that would probably do numbers.
That clickbaity thumbnail.
Yes. So, but I always think to myself, I'm like, because I try to tread the line on both sides a little bit of being like totally neutral versus like those accounts that I'm sure all over YouTube that just make their name and have millions of subscribers, but like make their name off of just saying like everything is worse than death. So it's always trying to tread the line. I think as I've been doing stuff more, I've been actually getting more critical, but it's nothing pales in comparison to like some of those other big YouTube accounts.
Yeah. And some of those guys, I mean, they're entertaining as hell. I will give it to them. Some of them are master storytellers, but, it's weird, man, because it's like, there's too much content. There was a point in time where I knew every movie coming out and I could tell you backstories on every movie coming out and actors and the directors and all the stuff they did. And now it's like, I can't even keep up. I feel like an old man, but it's not like a young man's game. It's an odd thing. But yeah, I think I'm at that point right now where it's just like, you see a lot of these big movie studios throwing all this ridiculous money at a movie, and then the movie fails miserably, and then they take no accountability for it, and then just completely blame the fans for the way that movie failed. And it's like, well, maybe do a little bit of introspection on that and let that sink in as to what people are saying, because it's like, yeah, I mean, if you talk bad about something that someone's super passionate about, they're probably going to get their feelings hurt and they're going to let you know about it, especially online. But I'm with you. Like I do try to. So one of the things that's always bothered me about watching movies with people is they're like, "Oh man, it was so boring," and I'm like, I've never really experienced boredom in a movie, because even if the story or the pacing is really kind of slow, I'm looking at like how it's lit. I'm listening to the audio, the sound effect. Like there's just a lot going on behind the scenes to make the movie move forward. So that's one of those things where it's just like people are like, "Oh my God, this movie's so boring," and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that. Though of course I've been bored in movies. Don't get me wrong, but I always try to be like, "Oh man, this camera shot's really cool," or like I'll even look for flaws if they broke 180, just technical things that most people aren't looking for.
Right.
I noticed that a lot more during bad movies, I will say, because it's like, you know, if it's a good movie, I'm entranced in the movie. I'm taken away by the, you know, the vision that the director has and the writer and the acting and all that stuff. But when you're watching, like when I was watching Argyle, I mean, man, I was just,
You were already pissed off.
yeah,
You know?
because from the get go, I got one. I think you and I briefly touched on this. Is like I like Matthew Vaughn. I actually, a lot of people crapped on the last Kingsman movie, but I actually thought it was fun. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I just, you know, it was one of those,
I dug it
I love
too.
the first Kingsman.
Yeah.
But when you go back and look at his filmography, you're like, oh man, these movies, like he kicked off with Layer Cake, which is at the time, I mean, that was all me and my buddies were talking about, was that movie. It was like the new Snatch, you know, at the time.
And that movie basically won Craig the Bond role. So
yeah. And then right after that, he did Stardust, which I think is one of those super underrated, underappreciated fantasy movies. Henry Cavill actually has a small part in that movie, which
I still haven't seen that, actually.
You haven't seen it? Oh, dude,
no, I
highly
haven't seen
recommend
that.
it.
Yeah,
it's really, really good. It's a short. I think it was like a novella by Neil Gaiman, and Matthew Vaughn adapted it. And it's honestly, it's like a modern day Princess Bride, I guess, is what I would compare it to. And then then you know, he did Kick-Ass and Kingsman and stuff like that. And like I love those movies.
yeah.
So that's why I was really, really surprised to see Argyle. And man, it was brutal. Like the first act, I was kind of like, all right, well, you know, it's pretty self-aware. It's corny as hell. Those lines that were given Bryce Dallas Howard were pretty rough. But then it kept going, and I was like, where's this movie going? And all of a sudden we have a twist, and then there's this twist on top of a twist. And Catherine O'Hara is British all of a sudden, and it was just a mess of a movie. And it was kind of a bummer to see.
There's a couple moments, though, that I think, had they not happened, I would have completely trashed it, because there was a couple things where the moments were so ridiculous that it almost like my will to keep going on was like depleted. So like, because I was past the point of no return, that I was like, okay, now I'm actually entertained a little bit, because like there was two moments that had me and my buddy cracking up in the theater. Was when Catherine O'Hara shows up again after being shot.
Oh yeah.
Right? And there's just that
was like
one
another
second,
twist,
but there's that
that
1 second split second shot in black and white of her just like opening her shirt and being a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And then that moment, and then when Bryan Cranston decided he needed to like handle this himself. And of course, there's a secret entrance right into the server room right behind them. Like, I was like, what is going on, dude?
Yeah. And then the cat is the one that eventually semi takes him down. I was like, oh my God, man.
I'm mad that they, obviously they keep like bringing everybody back, and like that whole moment at the end with like Ariana DeBose being the guy that hit him with the wrench.
She's everywhere now. She's like
she's everywhere.
Zendaya. Like she's in everything.
But I was almost hoping, because I got so much unintentional comedy out of it, I was praying that never got explained, and it was just a random guy that hit him with a wrench. Like that was just like the ultimate,
awesome,
the ultimate plot convenience.
Yeah.
But that it ended up being someone that we thought was dead. So
yeah. And then of course they had to set it up for a sequel. I was like, why can't that's another thing with movies. Like, did you see what was that? The Dracula boat movie. The name's I can't even remember it.
Demeter. Yeah, Last Voyage of Demeter.
The Last Voyage of Demeter. And like that was that was a cool premise. The movie went on for a little too long, but then they set it up for a sequel. I'm like, why does every single movie have to be a franchise
hated that
now?
ending. I hated that
Yeah,
ending.
it was terrible.
Yeah.
And like there was moments in that movie where I was like, man, if they had just taken a little bit more time with it, like, you know, the boy dies and stuff like that, I was like, man, this movie really had potential of being freaking incredible. But that's the weird thing I've noticed with movies now, is that it seems like they just rush to get to the next scene as opposed to taking its time with like some of the more delicate scenes in movies. So that's why, like, when a movie like Godzilla -1 comes in, they're like, you like Godzilla like, that's a freaking monster movie. Why is it one of the top favorite movies? It's a kids movie. I've had people accuse me, they're like, yeah, all these movies are kids movies. And I'm like, well, it's not just that. That's one, it's not a kids movie at all. Bring a kid to that movie, they're like, well, what's happening?
Yeah.
Because there's so much story in it. But I was like, it took its time with all the scenes. It took its time with the emotional beats that it needed to hit. It took its time with the humor. It took its time, like, getting to the big payoff. So when the very end happens, you can sit there and be like, yes, you know, you let everything kind of sink in, and it just hits a lot harder. And when Argo, I just felt like it was just going from scene to scene to scene. Here's a twist for plot convenience sake.
Yes.
To scene to scene to scene. Here's a twist that goes back to this other twist, and then there's another. You know, it's just like, I was reminded of the South Park episode where, do you watch South Park at all?
Off and on, like not religiously.
So there's an episode where terrorists attack Imagination Land, and so they bring in directors to try to help them figure out what's going on through these terrorists' minds, and they bring in M. Night Shyamalan, and he keeps explaining the plot that they're doing, and they're all a twist. And so the guy just looks at him and he goes, that's not a story, that's a twist.
Yeah.
That's all I was thinking about watching
over
like,
and
what
over.
is the story really in this movie? It's just all these plot conveniences, I suppose.
But going back to what you said, I think that's one of the most fun parts about Godzilla -1 just existing, because I have my buddies that know that I'm really into movies, that don't watch a ton of movies themselves, and then seeing me put Godzilla as my number one for 2023, it's like you get that awesome, like, what the hell is this guy talking about moment, because they're like, this is a Godzilla movie. Like you said, is it like a monster movie, more of like a kid-centric movie or something? Like, everyone was expecting like Oppenheimer to be like, for people that don't watch a lot of movies, you'd think like, oh yeah, the last Chris Nolan with Cillian Murphy and RDJ, like that should be above a Godzilla movie. And then I'm like, look, man, just go watch it. And then they come back and they're like, holy shit, okay.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, everybody I've talked to go see that movie, they're like, it's incredible. So
Yeah.
that's one of those movies that then I had that at 2 and Holdovers at 1, and I could have easily changed places on those. But Holdovers to me was just like, I was like, see, it's 2023. We can still make brilliant movies. We still have the talent. We still have the resources, and it doesn't have to cost $500 million. You know, like, one of the things I really appreciated about that movie, outside of, you know, just the brilliant writing, the performances, there's no modern day anything in that movie. You know, like, you watch a lot of stuff, and, you know, those guys that you're mentioning on YouTube that'll crap all over it, they get so mad with the modern day stuff. And it's like, I understand that to a certain aspect when you're doing a movie from like 1880, and it's like you want to bring modern sensibilities in it, but that's a conversation for another time. But what they did in the Holdovers was, it was just like, this is the 70s, and this is how everything functioned in the 70s. You know, you buy a bottle of Jim Beam and it's $2 at a liquor store.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And like, there was a scene in there too, I don't know if you noticed it, when they're in the museum, and you could just see like a camera pan right through the glass. And I work with people that do all day, just do digital stuff where they're removing camera shots out of glass and things like that. And I was like, they just left that in because what's the point? You know, it's a low budget movie. We don't need to waste our time on that. Let's just tell a good story. So that's the sort of stuff I actually really appreciate.
It's funny because you took the words right out of my mouth, because I keep describing that one as a time capsule. Like, it really does feel like a 1970s movie that you just like dug up somewhere. But I almost, whether it's a stylistic choice or they missed it or whatever, I almost see, and I didn't notice this myself, I'm just hearing about it from you. I don't actually remember seeing the camera lens showing in the glass in the museum, but it almost makes me think like, in a low budget 1970s movie, they wouldn't give a shit about it anyway. So it just kind of fits the piece, fits the time.
Yeah, totally. So, what made you start your channel, and when did you start it?
So I was like a full-on pandemic channel.
Okay.
Like so started on Instagram because I was always the movie recommendation guy in my crowd anyway.
Right.
So everyone was always texting me. Yeah. Everyone was always texting me looking for movies and what to watch and what streaming service it's on and everything. And everyone was bored to tears during 2020. So I was like, all right, maybe people are bored enough that they'd actually care what I have to say. So I like made an Instagram that was just, hence the name Sully Streams, because it was all about streaming at that point.
Right. Were you doing movies, or were you doing like games and stuff too?
So it was just, well, I didn't like live stream. It was literally just stream because it was about streaming services.
Oh, okay.
So it was basically like every week on Instagram for like an obscene amount of weeks. If you ever scrolled back on my Instagram, it's like ridiculous. But every week I would do a new movie recommendation per each of the 4 major streaming services. So like every week it would be a recommendation for Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and HBO. And then in the description, I would just write like mini blurbs and reviews, movies that they're similar to, and like my score, and just did that for like a bunch of weeks. Then kind of just realized like I wanted to find a way to express myself about movies in a much more longer format than like 800 characters in an Instagram description would allow me to. So kind of just made the YouTube channel from there. I think like the first video I ever put out, like the first review I ever did, was on that horror movie. I think it was in August of 21, the Night House with Rachel Hall.
Oh yeah. Rebecca
Hall, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
But solid movie. And I was like, all right, I'm diving in. Like the video was terrible, like tons of audio, like flickers, and the lights were awful. And I was just like, okay, this is terrible, but I spent like 10 hours on it. So just for like a 3-minute thing. And I'm like, just put it out. Like, we'll see what happens. And then slowly it ended up growing and growing. So just still to this day figuring it out. But I pretty much, started from there.
That's the fun thing. Like I went down a rabbit hole on your YouTube shorts. Why don't you do those anymore?
Getting a
lot of traction on those.
I go back and forth like on my. I'm like totally wearing the tinfoil hat on like short form. Not that it can't grow a big audience and stuff. I just don't know, the more I read about it and the more I look at the analytics, if it's the type of audience I want to be bringing. Or sorry, I'll reword that. I don't think the audience that would be interested in my shorts is also going to be the audience that's interested in watching me do long form.
That's my thing too. I've been doing a lot of shorts, and I noticed that none of them will go. Like it's grown, like my channel's grown a lot through the shorts, but then I'll release a video and no one watches it, and I'm like, well,
I think it's great for numbers, and but it's just, like you said, it's almost like anyone that interacts with your shorts, they're going to keep wanting to consume bite-sized pieces of content. Like, it's just 2 separate audiences. So, like, if you go into that and do shorts and have that mindset, I think it's totally fine if that's how things want to, you're fine with having to cater to 2 different audiences. And my mind could change as they kind of bridge that gap a little bit better between shorts and long form. But as of right now, I kind of abandoned it. Probably, I don't think I've done one in like the last like 6 months or something like that, just to try to forcing the long form to get more traction. But
yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, I work 60 hours a week. I work far from home. So it's like, I got 3 kids. So it's like, I gotta use my time when I can use it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just try to build everything for my TikTok, my Instagram, and YouTube shorts. And then I'll try to get my long form videos when I can get to them. I got a few working right now. So that's kind of why I wanted to do more of these interview type things, because it's good exposure for everybody. I'm actually talking to, do you follow Marta McFly on Instagram at all? She does like a lot of, she's a Canadian gal. She got banned off TikTok. She had a huge following and they gave her no reason whatsoever.
You know what? I didn't know who she was, but I saw you post that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she reviews all these crazy obscure movies where it's like, I'm a movie guy and I haven't heard of half the stuff she talks about.
Yeah.
I don't have the time or resources to keep up with stuff like that. So she's a good resource, but I'm talking to her tomorrow about it because she got banned for literally no reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I wanted to start doing stuff like this. And I mean, I'm having a good time, man. I'd love to have you on more often, you know, never hurts.
Yeah,
Maybe we could get big enough to where we could do live streams to where
just do this. That's the whole stream of income. Just do this.
Yeah, exactly. Just do this maybe on like a Sunday or something. I don't know.
Seriously.
I'm a big football guy. During football season, it might be rough, but
yeah. I'm the same way.
I'm sure we could work around it.
Yeah.
So I mean, your YouTube's been growing. Are you enjoying the process? Do you find it frustrating at all, or?
It goes back and forth. Like, I feel like I'm sure, I mean, how long have you been making videos on your channel? Probably longer than I have.
On my channel, really only, I guess, almost 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so
so what happened was I created my Instagram and I was just doing 10-second reviews and I didn't think anything of it because I really was like, I was off social media for like 4 or 5 years. I had it with that. And I started it just because I was like, you know, I'm getting back into movies. I'll just throw some stuff out there. And then my Instagram just like blew out. It's like started growing like crazy. So I was like, oh, maybe I should actually put some more time and effort into this. And so that's where it is, you know, to the point right now where I was like, all right, I'll just make some better quality looking stuff. Because there's some stuff out there that's, you know, it might be good content, but it just doesn't look that nice. And I was like, hey, you know, I can make it look relatively decent. So that's where I am on that. But anyway, I interrupted you.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, we've been around making this kind of content long enough that I feel like you kind of have an idea of like what videos would perform well and what would not. You know, it's like if I'm like, even if it's about a movie that I know is going to be massively popular, then that means that I'm competing against an insanely bigger crowd. If I put a review out and all of them are putting reviews out too. So like, do I have enough in like, how much can you do with a thumbnail or a title saying that it's a movie review for this specific movie to really make yourself stand out to the point that they're going to click on you over like Jeremy Johns or something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jeremy's amazing.
He rocks. Yeah. But it's one of those things. I mean, I'd watch him 10 times out of 10 over myself. So like, it's one of those things where, can't blame him at all. But so I think it kind of forced me into doing some intentionally less popular stuff. Like if on a weekly basis, if a huge movie comes out and like a crappy Netflix movie comes out, you might see me just reviewing the Netflix movie because I know there's way less talking heads talking about that movie, that I'm almost like, all right, I'll let them have that big popular one so I can try to get more, you know, FaceTime doing some like Asian movie on Netflix that I know if, you know, people might be interested in just for the sheer fact that they don't need to leave their house and it's click of a button. So, you know, it goes back and forth. Like it can definitely, you have to kind of just quickly learn to roll with the punches because there'll be videos that I spend an insane amount of hours on and they get like 100 views, or it'll be the videos that I like look like death or edited horribly, and that's the one that unfortunately blows up. So there's no rhyme or reason. Like you just really got to go with the flow with it. But I'm having a fun time with it just because I know that I would be having the same conversations and talking the ear off of anyone around me physically if I didn't do this anyway. So I might as well put it on camera and see if I can make a platform out of it.
Yeah, that's well said. I agree with that 100%. Like my fiance, she knows no actors. She doesn't know anything about movies. She watches the same 5 shows and has for the years that I've known her. And you know, like with me, I'm always watching something. Like I rarely watch something over and again, but like, so my next things that I'm going to be working on is I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, the other day. And it's one of my favorite shows ever. And I went back and I was like, I don't want to watch anything new. I just want to put something on. I was working on a case, or I was like building something. I put it on, and then she came in and like binged all 7 seasons in a couple weeks. Just got super into it, and then everybody in the house got sick, so it was just a good time to watch things like that. But I was going back watching it, and I was like, man, it's insane how good the writing was in that show. And I think part of what it is, at least in my mind, from what I've noticed anyway, is like they took time with characters. You had 20 to 22 episodes. Like, did you ever watch Buffy or Smallville or any of those shows? I know you're a little bit younger than me, and those shows probably look super dated now, but
well, I definitely understand like the pop culture importance of Buffy. It's a lot of people's favorite show. And I feel like that's been
for sure.
It's been becoming more apparent more and more. But I have never really seen it all that much myself.
So what I would say, I mean, I'd recommend you watch it. Maybe you can get your fiance into it. The first season's it's hokey and corny, and it's kind of hard to get through just because it's so 90s. And at that time, they were doing like Monster of the Week, and they really didn't have they didn't hit their stride. And season 2 kind of picked up where season 1 left off, but then like in the middle of season 2, it takes off, and it's incredible, man. But what I was saying is, like, I'm not sure any show I've ever watched develops their characters more than that one, because you really, really, really get to know, and you get to like, and you get to understand motivations from certain characters.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I understand why people like it so much, because they felt connected to those characters. And I think that's one of the problems I see now with TV is I don't connect with a lot of the characters. I don't understand, like, if you do watch the Mr. and Mrs. Smith show, I was just like, I don't understand why they're doing like when things kind of pop off, I'm like, why? I mean, I guess you got to have conflict, but I don't understand your motivations behind it. Whereas in a show like Buffy, you can be like, hey, you totally see why they're doing it, or you can get mad at them for making a dumb decision that's not like their character to do.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just stuff like that. It's like real life in a sense, to where you're like, your buddy does something and you're like, bro, why did you do that? Like, you're better than this sort of thing.
Right.
So that's one of the things, at least from my perspective, that's really, really missing now, because I just feel like a lot of these big tech companies that essentially run Hollywood now just want to push their content out so they can make their money back on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think jumping off that, though, like, you get a show like Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of banking on a decently well-known pop culture like title, just because even if people haven't seen it,
start of the Brangelina romance.
I was gonna say, even if people hadn't seen it, they at least know that's the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie fiasco. But I think you get a bunch of shows like that make something like The Bear look so much better. Like, it is
brilliant.
It's insane. Like, writing, acting on an everything level.
You need like a Xanax watching that show.
Oh my God, dude. Any of those like single shot episodes that it's like just in the kitchen are like nerve wracking. But it's like
that Thanksgiving episode, I almost had to turn it off. It was just so uncomfortable. Because like what I was talking to some people, and they were like, that episode is like the most relatable thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Where mom's like popping pills and getting drunk in the kitchen. Everyone's causing mayhem, blah, 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 blah.
You didn't even know who you wanted to watch. Like, it was just a masterwork, like, across all the performances and the camera work. But that's why it's such a rare thing, is because, like, to the counterpoint of like Buffy, like, there's something to be said about being able to develop characters and having so much time to do it, where it's like a lot could go off the rails. But if you're able to do that, and with 22 episode seasons, like, I grew up like a big Lost fan, for better or worse.
Yeah.
And
talking about going off the rails.
But like, I loved when back then TV shows had like 22 episodes per season. Obviously, for good and bad reasons, they don't do that anymore. But that's what makes something like The Bear so impressive, that like they're able to give us such a level of character development and history to these people when there's only like 5 or 6 episodes a season.
Yeah, especially in the second season, they really, really took their time with their characters. And like a show like that, it was almost like they had entire episodes devoted to certain characters, so you really got to feel and understand what that character was going through. Whereas in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it's just like there's this thing happens, they get this, each episode's like a different mission, essentially. So, and then their interpersonal drama starts kicking into gear, and you're just like, I don't really care about this side of things. I would have been way more interested in the missions they're in, which is kind of why I liked Reacher, because I was like, that guy, he has so that's what I think is missing a lot too, is nuance. The Bear has a ton of nuance. Even Reacher has nuance, because you're like, there's this dude who's basically just this brute force that rolls into a random thing. He finds himself in some sort of precarious situation, and then he's smarter than everybody else, but he's also stronger and a better fighter than everybody else. So those two, characteristics make him a really interesting character. But then you also get a part of like his family history and his flashbacks and the way the reasons why he is the way he is. And I'm like, see, that right there is character development. You really, you don't know a lot about him, but you also can see that there's a lot more to him than what meets the eye.
So I actually have not seen Reacher.
Oh, yeah.
I have some buddies that have said it's good, and I know it's like the ultimate like dad show, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
But I will say, in that kind of same vein, depending on what side of the fence some people are, they might hate it before they've even seen any bit of it. But I was addicted to Chris Pratt's The Terminal List.
Oh, I love that movie.
Dude.
That show. I loved it.
Unbelievable. And they're like making more of it. I'm a little worried because they're like doing spinoffs now apparently too. But like, to me, that was like what I thought like a Jack Reacher dad type of show mixed with like The Bourne Identity. Like, I was addicted to that. I thought there was actually a lot of...
If you like that, you'll love Reacher.
Yeah. I thought there's surprisingly some cool character development in there and good backstory stuff. So...
And it's cool because it was written by an actual Navy SEAL.
Yeah,
too.
It has to be legit.
Like, super legit. And he seems like just like the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And I come from a military family. My mom was in the Navy, and my stepdad was an admiral. So it's like
that's awesome.
I kind of relate to that. But
yeah.
So like, is one of your most I don't want to say get annoyed by this question, because I get asked it all the time. But do you ever get what are your 5 favorite movies? You're like,
I get it all the time, but I've been very secure for the last 20 years with my number 1 pick, so I have no problem saying it. I don't know if a movie, and just like, I can totally understand, like, I see both sides, that someone could say like, oh, well, my favorite movie list is changing constantly, or like, if I have one the same time, that it's like, if I have one locked in, that I'm like, maybe I'm unfair to other movies, because like there's like childhood stuff and like family stuff, and like it's so much more than just the actual movie. But favorite movie of all time will always be Raiders of the Lost Ark for me.
Fair enough. That's one of mine. That's one of mine too.
I can never complain. I think if I'm like looking at, just because I'm active on Letterboxd, I've been like, it's been making me think in top 4s instead of top 5s lately.
Because you only put your 4 favorite up there.
Yeah, so I think my 4 favorites, rounding them out, and they've never changed ever since I like started getting on that app, are Raiders, The Thing, True Romance, and Birdman. Love all 4 of those. Those are like my top 4.
Yeah, I got a pretty similar. The Thing is definitely up there for me too.
Yeah.
Raiders. I love the first Lord of the Rings. Like, I've seen that movie probably 50 times. I don't know. It just, I never get old of it. It never gets old to me. I know the whole series is amazing. Obviously, it's like the greatest trilogy ever made. But there's just something about that first one. I remember the first time seeing it, just the adventure of that. Aliens. Love Alien.
So are you line in the sand, Aliens over Alien?
Yeah.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. And I do love Alien too.
Yeah.
but I think I saw them both when I was so young, and the first Alien, I think when I saw it, it was worked up to me like it was such a scary movie. And I'm sure at the time it was, but I'd already seen, Nightmare on Elm Street and all those big movies. So when I watched it, I wasn't really scared by it. I think I was bored, but I was younger. I didn't fully grasp what a brilliantly restrained movie that is. As I gotten older, I've liked it a lot more. It's like, when I was a kid, I liked Temple of Doom more than I liked Raiders. And now Raiders is easily one of, if not my favorite movies ever. So it's just, perspectives change. And then it's funny watching a movie that you watched as a kid and you see it one way. And then when you get older and watch it, you're like, whoa, that's not at all the movie that I remember it being.
Well, hold on.
It's Aliens. And then,
I need to know what your indie ranking is then.
My indie ranking?
Yeah.
It'd be Raiders, Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, and then you could throw the other two.
I was going to say, I don't even need to
dartboard.
know
I
the
don't
rest.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And it's just, it was so disappointing with the new one. I really
oh my God.
wanted to like it. I think James Mangold has just been killing it lately.
Yeah.
But, you heard all those rumblings of like reshoots and problems with the script and stuff like that beforehand. It was all kind of coming out. And then I was also just like, the fourth one was so unnecessary. Because it's just like, with Last Crusade, they're riding off into the sunset. It was like the perfect ending.
Yeah.
And then that one came out and it was just like, whoa, this is not at all the Indiana Jones movie that we needed at that time. And then the new one came out. I was like, hopefully they can, make up for it. And it was just like, they're like, no, we're just trying to dust off a turd.
I hate to be a part of like the revisionist history crowd, but then I was like, all right, Crystal Skull isn't that bad because I saw Dial of Destiny and I was like crushed by it.
Yeah, me too, man. Especially the ending. Really?
Yeah.
Anything
but time travel.
Taking those, classic characters like Indiana Jones and just making him a grumpy old dude who just kind of, and it's like, look, I know that's more realistic, I suppose, but it's just like, that's Indiana Jones. That dude was like, you had Superman and you had, these immortal characters, and then you had Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
Like my stepson, I got him into the Indiana Jones movies, and he wants to be Indiana Jones for Halloween, and he thinks he's the coolest guy ever. And I remember being a kid, being the same way. And then we started watching the original Star Wars, and I was like, that guy right there is Indiana Jones. And he was like, wait, what? So now it's like he's really into Han Solo too.
Yeah.
So it's really cool seeing that those movies are 40 years old. Yeah, it can still have that same impact on a kid. And then we saw the new one in the theater together, and he was like, he liked it because he's at that age where he likes every movie.
Yes, yeah.
But he could also tell that it just wasn't the same Indiana Jones at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. And there's definitely like a problem in Hollywood of like, we want to bring back this beloved character. He's old now. We're going to make it very clear that he's old now, and he's going to be paired with someone that's going to be doing like his old shtick, but they're better than them, and they're making fun of them the whole time. And it's like you said, these larger than life characters, like that's great if, like, I totally understand that at some point Indiana Jones has to get old, but I don't really know if I want to see it.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's my thing. Like, do we need to see that?
No. I mean, apparently they think we did, but
yeah, I guess. Well, it's just I think one of the other problems is that us millennials are running the movie studios now, and we're so stuck in nostalgia that we're just like, hey, let's revisit this movie that we haven't touched in 30 years because people love these movies, and it's like, but we love them for a reason. So when you take them and then kind of shit all over them, it leaves a sour taste in our mouths.
Nostalgic is becoming like kind of a bad buzzword for me as like more time goes on. Like I don't know how I thought about this the other day, but like I think about like, so like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, they had that like unbelievably kick-ass like one-shot fight scene with
I love that. Yeah.
The Beastie Boys playing.
Uh-huh.
And then I was like thinking about that Beastie Boys song and like the Beastie Boys in general. And like my dad got me into them. I love listening to the Beastie Boys. But then I think I'm like, if those songs released today, people would probably say they were shit, even though I love them now. And again, it's like kind of nostalgic and stuff. So I'm always like kind of having that like chicken and the egg debate a little bit that I don't think that there's really a concrete answer to, but I don't know. I get caught up all the time of like, all right, well, I want them to recapture the magic from the old stuff, but it has to be done in a new way. And can I even ask that of these people? And I don't know.
Is there any? Well, I guess they just announced that they're like rebooting the Jurassic.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I talked about this.
Why? Because the last two, I thought the first Jurassic World was fine. It was, it was fun. It was nostalgia.
Yeah.
But then the last two were just, especially that last one, I thought that was a rough movie. And so I was like, why would you just want to keep spinning stuff off from that? Because it also didn't make near as much money.
Yeah.
As the first one. So, and I've kind of noticed that, like, they'll come out with even with the newer Star Wars, like when Force Awakens came out, everyone was going crazy over it. It made so much freaking money. And then Last Jedi came out, and Kevin Smith used to call it the "fuck you, JJ" movie, because it was like everything JJ Abrams set up in that movie,
dismantled it.
It just completely dismantled it. It was like, and then the third one was just damage control. But with each movie, the quality went down and the money that they made went down. And then it's just like that series just sits there. And I was like, well, I mean, it set up something kind of neat. I remember sitting in the theater being like, oh, this is awesome seeing Star Wars again on the big screen. But then by the last one, I was just like, I don't need just like Frankenstein Palpatine. What are we doing?
I know.
So,
it's like,
yeah.
That trend seems to keep going on where they'll bring back a big franchise, and it's always planned to be like a trilogy. And the first movie will be by far the most well-received because it's kind of played safe and like almost redoes the first of the original. But I always treat people, myself included, are kind of like softer on it because they're like, okay, they're like welcoming us back to like a good Star Wars movie.
Sure.
Like, okay, like it feels good to be back. Like the gang's back together. We get to see this franchise that we loved from like 30 years ago actually have like cool visual effects. And then they basically take a big steaming shit on it for the like with the screenplay for the next two movies. But and that continues to happen. I will say, not that it gets that many points for me, but that second Jurassic World movie, I did have fun. Like after I like got my like film critic hat off and could like get out like how stupid I thought all of it was, looking back at it and I like watched it again, I do kind of get a kick out of that. They like tried to establish this whole like dinosaur black market thing.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
And it was like, there was actually like, I think if you want a good Jurassic Park movie, you need to have those like horror adjacent scenes put in there. And that the second one is the only one that tried to do that with like that one huge raptor like creeping around the mansion and like pulling the covers off the little girl and like.
So there's elements of that movie that I thought were great.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
But it's so random. That movie to me was so random because it started off as something completely different. It was like this island is unstable right now. We got to get all the dinosaurs off of it. And I thought that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And the action was a lot of fun trying to get everything off there. And of course it was just like every big budget Hollywood movie now where it's just like everything works out at the very last second.
I think
then it went on and you have the whole mansion with the underground black market of bidding for dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me that Jay Bayona directed it because that dude is awesome.
Yeah.
But just sometimes it just shows you the scripts that some of these directors are given. Because I think he's had a really pretty solid directing career, especially with the Society of Snow. I don't know if you've watched that yet.
I still haven't seen that yet, but I've heard nothing but good things. Yeah,
phenomenal. I thought it was really, really good. So, and then he did Monster Calls, which I don't know if you saw, but I put that as like one of my most underrated fantasy movies of the last. It's not it's not a feel good movie by any means, but it's one of those movies that like just really just kind of hit me at the right time, I guess.
Yeah. I think looking back at that new Jurassic World trilogy, like not saying that that trilogy and franchise specifically is like the biggest offender of this, but it might be the best euphemism for like all the wrong lessons that Hollywood is moving forward with, in the sense of like the actual storyline, because they couldn't really think of anything, is like, all right, the T-Rex was super scary in the original, and that was like the big bad. So like we're going to bioengineer this new thing that's bigger, better, faster, and like basically takes a crap on the icon of the first trilogy. And it's like, that's all the wrong lessons. Like the story has no reason to exist. It's like bigger, better, more teeth, like scarier, that kind of, and that's the entire existence of the trilogy, and that you lose a massive bit of authenticity there.
I think I said with the third one in my review, I said it was like having dinner with old friends, but for dinner, you were just served a big bowl of diarrhea, you know? Like, it's just, it was like, you know, they brought in all the faces. You know, you had Sam Neill, you had Jeff Goldblum, you had Laura Dern, and then you had the newer cast. And it was just like, oh, you know, like we're all, especially
the gang's all here.
Yeah, the gang's all here. And then it was just like, and then it's the scene from Temple of Doom.
Here's the main course.
Heads. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Well, I mean, that third movie has to have, in recent memory, one of the most baffling scripts I think I've encountered.
It was so weird.
It was just about bugs.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with dinosaurs.
It was Chris Pratt's relationship with Blue,
and like
how everything tied into the locusts or whatever they were.
And like the Walmart version of Tim Cook.
Yeah.
Like freaking
exactly.
out. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
And I was like, I didn't fully grasp what message they were trying to put across in that movie either. But I know it's getting late, so I just wanted to ask one more question, and then we can call it a night. But let's definitely do this again, man. I've enjoyed chatting with you. I enjoy your stuff. So
likewise, dude.
Is there anything that you're watching now that you've been looking forward to? You know, what's kind of the state of Sully Streams at this point in time?
See, stuff that I'm looking forward to. Well, I'll say this, not like this is like a big marquee release or anything, but I got a chance to watch it earlier this week. I was surprisingly a fan of Lisa Frankenstein.
I saw your review on that. Yeah,
it's like a early Tim Burton, Edward Scissorhands mixed with Heathers kind of thing. It definitely has its bumps along the way, but like the entertainment value and like the laughs were pretty high the whole way through. So I was pretty surprised. Like that was, if you saw, that was like directed by Robin Williams' daughter.
Yeah, Zelda. I saw that.
And written by the woman that did Jennifer's Body. And it's like the perfect double feature to that.
Good.
And I think it has like pretty big cult classic status. Like, I don't know, it's not going to kill it at the box office, obviously, but
I mean, it looked too, like, I didn't think the trailers did it any justice, because I actually watched your review and I was like, oh, that looks cool. I'm going to see it tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
But I was not, I wasn't impressed by the trailers. It didn't sell me on the trailers. So
yeah.
But I did see that it was directed by Zelda Williams, and I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, I might even be like a touch more like sigh relief and like a little bit more generous to it too, just in the sense that I'm like, thank God we're out of January. Like, it's been brutal. So I don't know if you ever saw, the first movie I saw in 2024 was that horror movie Founders Day, and I'm praying you haven't seen that.
I didn't watch. I think I saw your review and I was like, all right, good. I'm avoiding that one.
It is.
I think you and Austin Burke like hated it, so I was like, all right, cool. But then I watched Night Swim, which came out right at the same time. That was god awful.
So I was all January horrored out. I didn't even watch Night Swim.
Oh, dude, you didn't miss anything.
But
about a haunted pool.
Yeah, I mean, I would have watched it just for like, obviously I love Wyatt Russell, but I heard that movie didn't do him. I heard that movie didn't do any favors.
Yeah, that's one of those disappointing things, is when you know they're good actors and then you're like, man, but they just, I think that's a directing thing. You know, you just couldn't get the or partially the writing and then the directing, because he was just he was given a tough role, but it didn't land.
I will say, looking forward, like next 2 weeks, stuff that I'm watching is, for better or worse, spending Valentine's Day at Madam Web. And then the next week, I actually already saw it at one of those Regal early screenings, but next week as well, that war movie with Liam Hemsworth and Russell Crowe comes out, Land of Bad.
Yeah.
That's solid.
Is it? Okay.
Like, I was pretty surprised. It's like definitely going to get buried. Well, actually, I mean, I guess not that much is out. It's right before Dune, but it was solid. I was pretty surprised.
Yeah. I'm going to see the new Bob Marley movie on Monday. I mean, it looks kind of interesting, but it also looks like just one of those Lifetime type movies where they just make a biopic and everything. It was what was the Freddie Mercury one? Bohemian Rhapsody. I remember when that came out. It came out right around the same time as Rocket Man, which I think Rocket Man is a super underappreciated movie. I actually really liked that movie. But I remember Bohemian Rhapsody because Rami Malek is so good in it. But I just was like, this is just every biopic I've ever watched. Just like, I feel like biopics have gotten so lazy too in Hollywood.
It's such a formula.
It is like a lot of people loved the Blackberry movie last year, and I mean, I didn't hate it. I just was like, this is formulaic. It was like I could tell you every beat that's going to happen in this movie now. But I don't know. Did you see the Blackberry movie?
Yeah, I did. I saw it last month, actually, as I was just trying to catch up for, before I had my 2024 list figured out. And kind of like you, I liked it. I don't think I totally understand like the insanely high praise some people are giving. It wouldn't have a spot anywhere near my top 10 for the year. But
I actually liked the Tetris movie way better because I thought it was pretty innovative. It didn't hit all the same beats that these biopics seem to. I feel like a biopic gets a script and they're like, all right, so we got to do this. And then this needs to happen, and then there needs to be this that needs to happen, and then everything just kind of resolves itself, and we'll put some words up on the screen at the end, and tell you where everybody is at this point.
Paired with like clips of the real person.
Yeah,
like, that's always
exactly.
how it is. Yeah, it's always how it is.
We could probably write one just doing this,
honestly.
And then so I mean, obviously Dune is coming out in the next month, so that's. I mean, I'm super pumped for that. I love the first one.
Yeah,
I actually like everything. Denny's done. So
yeah, he rocks.
I don't know if you ever saw Prisoners. Have you seen his first movie?
I saw Prisoners, I think like 3 times opening weekend.
Oh yeah, man!
Like it was unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And then he did Sicario, which I was just like, dude, this guy's on. And then Blade Runner, I think, gets overlooked. I mean, I know a lot of people were like, yeah, it's just, the story wasn't there. It just looked nice. But I was like, I don't know, man. I thought it was awesome. But
I'm one of those people, unfortunately.
You were?
I'm like, so I just think my problem is I hold the original in such an insanely untouchable regard.
I'm right there with you, bro.
I was like, I don't know. But I do need to see it again. I only watched it that one time that I saw it in theaters.
But I'd say watch it again. I watched it a few times. I mean, I'm one of those people who kind of falls in the whenever Jared Leto's in something, I'm sure to see some overacting. It's very distracting to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like more people have kind of caught on to this shtick as of late because I've seen a lot of like Instagram videos and stuff like that. They're like, why do people keep trying to force this guy on me? And it's like, look, I'm sure he's a nice guy. And he's definitely had some good performances, but it's just like his characters have gotten weirder and weirder. But every time I watch him, it's like when you watch a good character actor, they become that character. Whenever I watch it, I'm like, oh, that's Jared Leto telling me he's an awesome actor. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it definitely makes sense. I think like being a fan of him, less and less so now, but like he's become much harder to defend as the years go on. Like ever since like Suicide Squad, it's been pretty much not possible. Going back and like looking through his filmography, I've always noticed that I think I just prefer him being these like expendable, annoying guys. Like I think one of my favorite roles of him, even though he's annoying as shit, whether that's by design or just him being him, is his role in Panic Room. Just like he's just the annoying.
In that?
Yeah, cornrows in that. Yeah. And it's like it's so stupid, but he kind of fits for that. But But yeah, when he gets into his more like speculative, like mightier than God stuff, like he did a little bit in the Blade Runner movie, or
that. And then Morbius.
I was gonna say we don't even need to talk about Morbius.
You never did? Oh, well, you're gonna go see Madam Web, and I'm sure because all the actors are basically like distancing themselves from that movie. So I'm just, and it's like I saw I'm sure you saw the Craven trailer, and I was like, Craven's an awesome character, but that movie it doesn't look good. So I feel like the Spider-Man universe needs to cool its jets a little bit.
It's gonna be that movie's gonna look so bad compared to, I don't know if you're a gamer at all, but the Craven stuff in the last Spider-Man game was awesome.
Yeah, no, dude, and that was one of the best. That was one of the best story arcs.
Yeah, like the Last Hunt stuff. Yeah,
because that's one of my big problems with superhero movies. Like I love superhero movies, obviously, but I do have an issue with a lot of the villains. 90% of the time, I'm like, oh, they're just cookie cutter. There's no depth
expendable.
To them. They're just bad for the sake of being bad. But what I loved about the Craven character is that he had a lot of stuff from like the comics I remember reading as a kid. But two, he was a bad dude. He was impossible. You know, he was really, really tough, and he had a lot of depth to his character.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Really, really cool.
100%.
Which they could have done with the Venom movies, but
dude, those movies.
My daughter loves them, but she's 11, so
those are so brutal. Like I keep begging them not
Tom
to.
Hardy, dude.
I know, but I keep begging them not to connect it to the MCU, and I think the fact that it hasn't really happened full force is
No Way Home. Didn't No Way Home?
He had that weird little like Mexico scene, or something.
It didn't make
like,
any sense.
No, and he like licks the TV when he sees Tom Holland, and then it's over. Like, I don't think it's ever gonna fully connect. Even though, I mean, you heard the crazy Madam Web stuff, right? That they were originally trying to make it connected to, like, Andrew Garfield was supposed to be like Spider-Man in that movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, then they realized, oh, wait, this takes place way before Peter Parker was born. And they're like, we got to scrap that. I don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know.
It doesn't seem like they have any, they don't have any plan in mind. It just seems like, hey, let's release this because we'll make some money.
Have you seen all the interviews of all the actresses in it that, like, I think it's almost like the people that were interviewing them had to tell them, like, no, this isn't an MCU movie. Like, this is its own thing. And they're all like, oh shit, like, what did we sign on for?
Yeah. And I saw that, like, Dakota Johnson is all but pretty much just distanced herself completely from the movie. So it's not shaping up. It's not looking too well for them.
No.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, let's do this again sometime. I had an absolute blast. I mean, we could probably go on for hours and hours, but
yeah.
So
100%.
Before we go, let everybody know where they can find you, what your info is, all that stuff, and I'll release some of this, and feel free to use whatever you'd like.
Yeah. No, pretty much any relevant social media platform at Sully Streams. I'd say I'm most active on YouTube and Twitter now these days. Used to do a lot of stuff on Instagram. I'll still like promote some of my stuff over there. I kind of want to get back into.
I see your stories kick up every now and then.
Yeah, I kind of want to get back into doing maybe like the weekly movie pick stuff over there. But
sure,
for the most part, it's just YouTube, Twitter at Sully Streams.
Okay, cool, man. Well, Sully, have a good night, and let's keep in touch, bro. I'd love to do this again sometime.
I'd love to, dude. Have a good one.
Man. Awesome. Thanks, man. Take care.
See ya.